Is technology at your work distracting you from actual work? Do you spend too much time troubleshooting PC or internet issues? IT Enabled can help. Our team of IT specialists can help you tackle your technology troubles and get you focused on growing your business in no time. Call to schedule your technology consultation. 936-225-3329. IT Enabled. We're here to help.
Hi, I'm Tara Watson-Watkins, President and CEO of the Lufkin Angelina County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Connect, connecting business to community. We're excited to have you here, and I'm here joined today by my co-host, Blake Pollino with BP Media Group.
So, super interesting episode this week. We sit down with the director of the History Center in Diboll, Jonathan Gerland, to talk about all of the archives and all of the history that they capture and preserve about our community and this entire region. So let's jump into that episode now.
Well, we are so excited today to have Jonathan Gerland. He is the director of the History Center in Diboll. And I have known Jonathan for years, worked with him back in my CVB days. You were always a great resource for me to be able to find tools. And then now with the Chamber, we continue to use your information at the History Center. So welcome. Glad to have you today. Why don't you tell the listeners kind of your background history? And
Okay, well, I wasn't born here. I consider myself a native Texan, born in the far western province of Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
My parents on both sides have heritage going way back, and my mom's family's rooted in Nacogdoches, but I was born during the Vietnam War. My dad was in the Navy, so I was born in Hawaii. So
Yeah.
if it wasn't for that, I would have been a native Texan. But, Texas claims all the way up to Wyoming, or at least did years ago. But anyways, graduated from Lufkin High School and went to Angelina College on an art scholarship, and then transferred to Stephen F. Austin State University, where I earned a BA and MA degrees in history.
Okay.
Worked for the State Archives a little while, worked for the Forestry Museum, City of Beaumont, and then had the opportunity to come back home in early 99 to start really what's become the History Center now in Diboll.
That's great. So you've been there since the inception.
Yes. There was a local history component at the public library prior to that, and anyways, it was just several things had come together to really expand the program and to focus a little more directly on regional history. And anyways, just a great opportunity to work with the TLL Temple Foundation to make all that happen. And I'm excited to tell you more about our mission and our purpose.
Well, tell us about it. Tell us about the History Center. What does it do?
Well, our purpose is to collect, preserve, and provide free public access to the history of our region for the benefit of present as well as future generations. So in many ways, what we're doing is collecting past, present, and future generations through our shared experiences here in East Texas. And when I say our history, it's a focus on the records. Mm-hmm. It would be the written documents, papers, as well as photographs, oral histories. We make an effort to try to capture people's stories. Many times in the official records, the underserved communities, people of color especially, those stories aren't captured in records. So we focus on getting those stories through interviews with individuals, and so that's one component.
Well, if you have never been to the History Center, it is absolutely beautiful. It's pine on the inside. It is so warm and inviting just the moment you walk through the door. And then you're just full of history everywhere.
Right. We focused on some of our native building products of the area. It's mostly pine and cypress interior, and we were really fortunate. Temple Inland at the time really helped us out a lot with that, and the local architects, Goodwin Lassiter, helped design that building, and that's what we wanted to do is to feature the warmth of wood and make it a very inviting experience. We also focus on some of our native natural plants. Our landscaping outside is, that's an important part of our heritage too. It's the people, it's the place.
That's right.
And in many ways, the place shaped the people who came here, the people who chose to stay here and to build a community. And in ways, people help shape the community as well as the natural environment help shape the people who lived here.
So people that come in that are looking for things, they can look through computers, they can look through files. How does that work?
Yes. We have approximately 4,000 cubic feet of manuscript collections, and I'll put a plug in for the chamber. We recently received many records from the Chamber of Commerce. Now, some people may say, well, what is that? One of the things is the minutes of the board, and those go back to the 1920s. And so if you really want to see the history of, let's say, highway development, civic center, community thing, anything that the chamber is in today, I would almost argue even more so in the past because, looking at transportation, the development of the highways, the farm to market road system, efforts to build a downtown region or to hold on to a downtown region, depending on how far you go back. But even the airports, there was a city municipal airport, and then, the development of the county airport, railroads. I mean, it's all there in records such as that. And so those, like any other of our records, are there if the public wants to come in and have access to those. Like I said, it's a beautiful environment to do that in, but we also have a digitization component. And so, for instance, a lot of the chamber's records, as well as a lot of the photographs that you entrusted with us, are available through our website. And at some point, we can talk a little bit more about the website. But, we've got over 1 million photographs. A lot of those are available online. But all of our materials, the oral histories, you're certainly welcome to see them in person. But we do spend a good bit of time trying to make those accessible online as well.
And, to me, hearing how much information is there, it's overwhelming. So as someone who doesn't even know where to begin, a lot of times I pick up the phone and call y'all and say, this is what I'm looking for. We're giving this award to this person. What have you got? And your staff is just the nicest to work with. They start, give me a little time, I'll see what I can dig up. And all of a sudden, I just start having emails just come in with photos and different stories. And it's just such a great resource tool for people.
We've been very blessed to have such staff. And, I think, we participate a lot and are affiliated with a lot of historical programs like what we do, at big university levels. But I've always felt we've had probably the best public service-oriented staff.
That's right.
Really go above and beyond, what the public may even be expecting. But, it's exciting. I think we all enjoy our work. It's a passion. We enjoy coming to work every day. And it's not even really considered work. It's fun. It's a profession.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So what's your favorite collection?
Oh my gosh, my favorite. I'm not going to be able to answer that. I like all the collections. I guess I'll answer it in a way like this. Again, it's those connections that you have. And I would argue that, although we've got some collections that are as large as 1,000 boxes, 1,000 cubic feet, but, we may have a small collection of papers. We've got some very interesting World War II era. We did a World War II exhibit back in 2005 for the, I guess that was 50th anniversary of the end of World War II, and we got some little booklets. I wish I could have brought it to show everybody, but they were flight logs that some of our native, East Texans, Dibollians, Lufkinites, who served in World War II, and these were men, as we would tell at school children, they flew on the other side of the world and dropped bombs on people.
That's right.
But, we would ask the question, who keeps a diary or a journal? And, some of the girls would raise their hands, but most guys, I don't do that. We say, well, hey, these men, and we've got pictures of them, and their flak jackets of standing in front of B-24s and B-17s, and they were tail gunners and turret gun, personnel. But they all kept these little flight logs as personal records because it was a dangerous mission to go do that. So it's those connections. Any of these records, but I'm just using that as an example, where we can connect someone as young as, third and fourth grade.
That's right.
These are people who went to the very schools that you're going to, and they were involved in world-changing events. And so all history is local. If we lived in Paris, France, our local history would be the French Revolution and all the implications that was. But I think it's the educational component. It's making connections, like I said, to the present generations, understanding the past, which helps them understand who they are today and gives us the resources to make decisions about the future.
It's really interesting. You say that it's local. What is the historical region that the center covers?
That's a good question. The easiest way to say it is Angelina and the immediate surrounding counties. And for the most part, that's true. But, we do have some material that's more far-reaching. We have let's just say Lufkin Industries. We were very fortunate to work with the board of directors of Lufkin Industries before the General Electric acquisition and received all those materials. Some of our audience will remember the Lufkin Line publications, the old Lufkin Foundry Roundup.
I have a Lufkin Line
Yeah,
book in my office.
From 1921, for many years, more than half a century. We've got all those digitized on our website.
That's right.
But so many of their records, we've got 500,000 photographs of Lufkin Industries. So Lufkin Industries had a presence all over the world, Russia, and truly all over the world. And so, that goes beyond our region. But again, it's homegrown, it's local based. And again, if you really look at historical connections, you can't just limit it to a particular spot because there's implications and connections all over. During the pandemic last year, I was amazed that during the month of April, we had 7 requests for some of our materials to be used in films and documentaries, including Peter Jennings's production company that he's formed in New York. He's deceased now, but his production company is still going. And so they were doing some documentaries, and they utilized some of our resources.
Cool.
We have a diary of a Japanese soldier who was on Iwo Jima. So his diary gives a perspective of the impending invasion from of the Americans onto the island. And there was a radio station in the Netherlands who was wanting to utilize that resource.
Interesting.
But again, the website's able for us to take our history outside of the region to the world. And but essentially, back to the heart of your question, it's our county as well as the immediate surrounding, and really, if you look at it, it's our natural resources and the connections that those, going back to the 19th century with the railroads and the timber industry, and even Lufkin Industries grew out of that. Once we started getting heavy equipment industry here, there was nobody to work on it. Everything came out of Milwaukee, and so the families here that started those lumber industries needed to have heavy foundries and ironworks, and so that grew. And then when the oil industry came in, so one thing led to another. And anyways, I could go on and on about some of that. I think I've digressed from your question.
No, it's really, really interesting. I love the historical, all things history, really. But tell me, when someone walks into the center, what are they typically looking for? Like, what kind of person's coming in? Obviously, people making documentaries and things like that.
Yes. We're right on Highway 59, which they've been telling us for a quarter of a century or more is the busiest non-interstate highway in the state. Now, I know technically it's fixing to be an interstate, which is confusing, I think, even to us locally. We have a US 69, now US 59 is going to be I-69.
Right.
That's how they cross.
Just call it one
there
thing.
in Lufkin, right? But so the point is that we get a lot of traffic, and so as far as volume of physical on-site visitation, it's people passing through, and so in many ways we're sort of anybody heading north. We're the ambassadors for the region. And but again, as you pointed out, our architecture, some of our exhibits on site are geared towards that kind of an audience. You're just coming through, hey, what is this? We've got a nice, clean place to use the restroom, if no other reason. And while you're there, we can meet and greet you and, give you a sense of what this place, this community is a little bit of about. You can go outside and see the train.
I was going to say, the train is so cool. I love it.
And so, from 5 to 95 years old, we've got a little something for everybody. But beyond that, it would be, to come in and have access to the materials. The exhibits, we try to rotate those out periodically. Right now we have a mapping exhibit. We have maps from the 20th century. A lot of those are forest industry, forest type maps. But then we've got some reproductions of some going all the way back to the Spanish and French colonial era. To the 16th and 17th centuries. If you look at an archive, you might say, well, what is archives? Well, an easy explanation, hopefully, is it's a record of human activity that we preserve because of its enduring value. So like in these maps we have, a lot of them are timber type maps.
Okay.
Okay, they go all the way back to the early 1900s before industrial logging. Some of your audience may be familiar with the composition of the natural forest before industrial changes. It was a different forest than we have today. Predominantly now it's loblolly, but back then it was mostly longleaf and shortleaf. And once all that was cut out, it didn't come back on its own. Loblolly proved to be the faster generating species. So that also affected our natural environment and the habitats of other creatures.
Interesting.
So there's been lots of efforts to reintroduce some of the native species. Because we have these timber type maps, which at the time were to help a lumber company plan for their harvesting agendas. And then they probably don't have much use for them after that. But today they have enduring value. That's
right.
where the enduring value comes in. So the U.S. Forest Service has used these because you can identify soil types. Where did these trees grow naturally before man kind of changed everything? States of Arkansas, Louisiana have even used these. It's only because somebody didn't throw them away,
That's right.
and we've kept them.
Luckily, they didn't throw them away.
Right. And so, in many times, that's where we get a lot of our collections it's sad fact, but it's true. Someone just simply didn't toss it out.
That's right.
Because it only takes that one act, and we've
It's
lost
gone.
it forever.
That's right. So do you have a lot of school tours that come through?
Well, not in the last year, of course.
But on a regular year?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we do. It's been decreasing.
Okay.
Schools have been, I don't pretend to know what's going on, but they have decreased. I think schools are doing a lot more things they have to do. And I know my sister's a school teacher. She grew up here as well and taught here and other places, but she's in Montgomery. But when she taught, in Lufkin at times, she and her fellow teachers would have to take up private donations even to get transportation to travel. But they, especially some of the PACE programs, would try to do an annual trip. We've tried to work with schools to get more involved with curriculum. What it is that you're teaching. Here's some local ways to do that. And again, it sounds like I'm blaming somebody. I'm not. I mean, it's just the way we are, the society, I guess. But we've been a little disappointed. We haven't had those opportunities to work that way. So when we do, a lot of times it's like, oh, well, we've got 2 weeks to at the end of the year. And so, let's go to the History Center, So we welcome that, but at the same time, it would be nice if we...
It's underutilized with schools.
Yes, that we could be part of helping, again, all history is local, right?
Yeah.
So whatever school children are studying, it's not somewhere else. It happened here.
That's
Everything happened here that happened somewhere else. And I think that's important, to have a sense of place. And so, hopefully in the future we can work on that a little bit more. But again, I think from the school perspective, there's just so many things they have to do. And anyways, I'll shut up about
it's
it.
important to teach children about the historical preservation.
Yes.
And why that's important.
And to have it locally to see it.
That's right.
To have access. So again, let me backtrack a little bit. Yes, we do. It may not. I guess what I'm saying is it's not as much as maybe it
You'd
could
love
be.
to. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about your website, because your website is so resourceful, and I hop on there all the time looking for stuff. So tell people what they can find when they come to your website.
You can just Google the History Center in Diboll or any variation of that, but it's thehistorycenteronline.com. Basically, you have access to lots of different things. It's like a traditional website. It's got the menus at the top, and so one of the menus is oral histories, and so then you go there, and it's alphabetically listed. Sometimes we're working on trying to make it as user-friendly as possible, but it starts off at the A, so you have to go to, if you know, like
what you're looking for.
We need to interview you sometime, by the way. But go to the surname, the last letter, and then it's presented alphabetically by the last name.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times when we first started, you said, well, you only have 20, well, you're just looking at the A's. But anyways, the great thing about the oral histories is they're all transcribed.
Yeah.
So you can download them and then do text search, Control F. So, oh my gosh, Forest Festival, festival, just search for festival. And then it'll just highlight those words. But the great thing about oral histories, and I tell people all the time, and I'm just as guilty, it's like the house painter whose house needs painting or the gardener whose yard needs mowing. I would encourage everyone, families, to do oral histories. Interview anyone in your family, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Capture that voice.
Right.
That voice. Yes, the story is important. I was too young, for my mother's family, when they passed away. But my grandfather was a great storyteller, and I can kind of hear him, but I can't hear his voice, the way he talked, his inflections, his pauses, just the way he talked. And so that's on there. So you can hear the audio, you can stream it, you can download it, but then you have the transcript to go along. So, oh my gosh, we could spend more time, if we had it, to focus on just oral histories. And, maybe we could partner someday in doing some, here's some things that maybe the chamber is seeing, 20 years down the road. I remember not too long ago, we did a Vision 2020.
Huh? Do we came across those notebooks the other day, and one of the girls said, "What is this?" And I'm like, that was something that was started in the 90s.
Yeah.
Right. And here it is, 2021.
That's right.
I've often wondered about that. That might be something neat to go back and look. I joke sometimes, talking about something that happened, 20 years ago. Said the world's changed 3 times since then.
That's the truth.
But
that's the truth.
Anyways, to go back to the website, online collections, that's the tab at the top where you can have the access to the majority of the material. And so the way our website's set up right now, it's just by alphabet. So Angelina Chamber of Commerce would be under the A's. And then we have subcategories. So it would be board of directors, meeting minutes. Another neat thing about those are some of the committees, the transportation committee, livestock committee. That was still a big part in the 40s and the 50s. And it's interesting to go back and look. In the 1950s, I forget how many committees there were, but Arthur Temple Jr., who was, getting Southern Pine Lumber Company and transitioning into what became Temple Inland. But, you go back to those Chamber of Commerce records, and, he was on like 8 committees at one time. I mean, he was basically
Absolutely.
Whatever,
he ran the thing.
Whatever committee y'all had, he was a part of it.
Yeah.
And so, that's a lesson today, is involvement, anyways, but all of that's there. That's the thing to keep in mind, I guess, is alphabetical. So if you're looking at Lufkin Industries, it was earlier known as Lufkin Foundry and Machine Company, so it'll be there. Some of the Temple companies would be under the T's. Just scroll down, and we've got annual reports. Anyway, it's just fascinating sometimes to see the different uses of history. Again, a record of human activity that we preserve because it has enduring value. Some things are a little obvious. Some things are, oh wow, I never thought people would use that. We actually have some old county school records that. We actually have the census blank back in the 30s and 40s, and even into the 50s. Before some of the communities developed into independent districts. But a parent would enroll their child, and going way back, and some people don't have birth certificates. So this isn't so much the case now, because I'm talking like 20 years ago. But even the Social Security Administration will accept that as proof of age.
Wow.
If you didn't have a birth certificate. A lot of times in rural communities, it was the 30s or 40s really before you started getting birth certificates. So
a lot of the courthouses burned down and lost all the records.
So here's a document. Again, its purpose was to enroll your child in school, but now people are able to prove their age and qualify for Social Security benefits because of this record.
That's great.
And it's certified, notarized, and all that. And so just one example. I mean, we could spend all day just talking about the uses of history.
You've got just such a great thing. What people may not know about you is that you're also a phenomenal photographer yourself. We use a lot of Jonathan's photos in our chamber things, and we used a lot of them at the city. Always would tag Jonathan Gerland on there, and but he is a beautiful photographer, and you're writing a book.
Yes, and it'll be Texas A&M University Press. It's supposed to come out in January.
Oh,
That's great.
And it's an environmental history of our region, but it focuses on the conservation area known as Boggy Slough. And many of y'all in the audience will recognize that place maybe. But really, it's a story of the land. It focuses on the land from the time of European contact really to today, and it looks at some of this stuff where, I was kind of alluding to earlier about the forest composition and really the different landscapes that you had societies such as the Caddo people who, in some ways, because of the time period in which European contact was made, when records started being kept, written records again, so that's really when history begins. It doesn't mean that things didn't happen before, but without written records, we need the history. Then we get back to archaeology. But, each society needed to work that land. I mean, they used fire. That's the thing that people forget a lot about. But it was the most natural and most powerful tool to shape their environment. And they did it to make the things that would keep them alive.
That's right.
They had to live off the land. And then when the American settlers came, fire was a very powerful tool that they had. But the big differences were that they brought domesticated livestock. And they started, Watson-Watkins would have its land section, and you would have your land. If you look at General Land Office maps, it's all surnames.
That's right.
And so even though those animals might have roamed a little bit, they stayed pretty close. And so, especially when fencing came in, and it changed the native composition of the land. Mm-hmm. And then when you had economic changes, really elsewhere, a lot of changes, might start somewhere else. But it comes here. And I mean, really, if you look at our economic development, really what we're benefiting from today and maybe challenged looking ahead is all of this was built by ideas and from people who came from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, Kurth stowed away on a boat. They came here, and, the first Mr. Temple came from Virginia. All the railroad companies didn't start here, but, they knew there was an opportunity here.
That's right.
And so all this community was built up, and really history is a big part is the story of migrations. We marvel sometimes that plants have the ability to adapt and move and change, but really, I was born in Hawaii.
That's right. People move and change and adapt.
Yeah. So really, the book addresses a lot of those bigger issues.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of people will know it as the hunting club and things like that. But the book explores the ideas and the visions behind it. So it's, the society, mm-hmm. Each society, like I said, there were 3 or 4 different ones. And so through having access to those records, I mean, we've got a lot of those records. And earlier, some of the lumber company records of the whole region are at SFA and the East Texas Research Center. So I had a marvelous opportunity to have access to all those records. And so anyways, I hope, like I said, it might not be the history that Mr. Temple would have written, but it certainly is the story of the land.
Yeah.
And that's the focus.
We look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Well, we've loved having you on here.
Is that it? That's all
a
the time
wealth
we
of
have.
knowledge.
Awesome. Real quick before we let you go, what do you think is the oldest record that you have?
Oh my gosh. We have some of the Temple family that go back to the 18th century. Mm-hmm. I'd have to really think to give you a date or something like that.
That's pretty far back, though.
Yeah. And another interesting thing we have record-wise, I know you're ready to go.
No, you're fine.
We have date nails. And do y'all know what date nails are?
Uh-uh.
It's a nail, of course, but on the head it has a 2-digit number. And railroad companies used to use them, utility companies, telephone lines. And so anytime, because wood deteriorates, right?
Yeah.
So railroad puts in a new bridge, a new trestle, telephone company puts in utility poles. So each company had a way of, a method of where they would put these nails in. Basically, it was a way of record keeping.
That's right.
And so anyway, to me, that's kind of fascinating, and we have a whole collection of them. So like if a railroad came through and had a wreck on the line, and they had to replace all of the track in that area, finding those and knowing when something was built would decide, do we just need to patch this or need to replace everything around it?
Interesting.
And the old Lufkin Conroe Telephone Company, we had a lot of theirs, and some of the railroad companies.
Do they still use them?
I think that's a good question. I don't really know.
It's a really smart way to.
But it was a very practical way back then.
Uh-huh.
All through certainly the 19th and even the early 20th century. And so that's not on a permanent exhibit, but we do have a board that we've got all, kind of like in chronological order.
That's
and
cool.
So anyways, it's just another story to connect with the public about our the means and the importance of keeping records, even if it's just a nail driven in a piece of wood.
That's cool, though.
Love it. Awesome. Well, if you like history, you are really missing out if you have not been to the History Center yet. So thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to share all this with us. And thank you so much again for listening to the podcast this week. If you want to catch the video version of this podcast, it's available on the Chamber Facebook page as well as the Chamber YouTube channel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.